hello. First of all, never say good luck, have fun, or GLHF. Always say lol, like at mer. If you're going to say anything, of course you don't have to say anything. It's probably better not to, as Wooped, aka Whooped, pointed out. It could cause players to give you more attention than they otherwise might have done. But that's just a minor point, although I don't get why anybody who wants to be a good person would write GLHF into the chat at the beginning of a game. But as you'll notice in the top right, I don't have a scoreboard. That's because the scoreboard effectively is cheating. If you don't know how to disable the scoreboard, make sure that you have an ad blocker called uBlock Origin installed on your browser, and then right click on the scoreboard like I have done on the chat and click the block element button and then the create button, and that will permanently disable the it's reversible, but unless you reverse it, it will permanently disable the scoreboard. And because of that, you won't know how many players are left alive unless you look very closely at the chat, and you won't know the size of your opponent's armies, and you won't be able to discern how many citadels they have taken. And now onto the subject of citadels. They should be upgradable. So the quality of infantrymen that comes out of a citadel should be something that can be increased by spending resources to upgrade your citadel, and that's each citadel individually, not all of your citadels collectively. And you might say, where are we getting these resources from? The answer is from your mines. Now, mines have to be constructed using resources which can only be gotten from mines, which means that your general functions also as a mine. And mines themselves are also upgradable with mechanics similar to idle games, also known as incremental games. And you'll notice the word idle. What does the word idle mean in idle games? That means something along the lines of AFK. And that's right, being AFK is actually a good thing. Currently, if you're AFK, you might be booted from the game. In fact, even if you're not AFK, but you just look like you're turtling too much, you might be booted out of the game. But now having the scoreboard hidden actually disincentivizes turtling because it incentivizes exploration. There is a true fog of war in the game, so you're not going to know what your opponents are going to do unless you explore. So if you're turtling, you're not going to know. Like, how do I know how many players are in the game? You know, this in the chat should be disabled. These things should not be in the chat, so pretend we can't see that. I believe it's just me and Orange, even though I haven't been paying close attention. But how would I know it's just me and Orange if that thing wasn't there in the chat? And he didn't make it so obvious like he is. It's an interesting game. Theoretically, you might want to draw the game out indefinitely, or at least for a long time. But that's a minor concern because no one would actually do that. So yes, because of that, you would actually be disincentivized from turtling. And also the way ELO works, well, that should be fixed, but that's really unnecessary with all of these fixes put in place, because the game will no longer be just a short game where ELO matters, because obviously it's not actually ELO, but because the game will no longer be just a short game that might last 10 minutes, or certainly last less than a day. Instead, the game will be almost perpetual, which means that you won't be starting lots and lots of new games unless you want to play multiple games at once, which may be a possibility, because turns, instead of taking half a second, will take either 12 or 13 seconds. so that gives you a lot more time to plan. And did I mention that tiles should be, they should have an attribute which determines how defensible they are, and that attribute should, the value of the attribute should be incremented over time. In other words, the longer that you hold a tile, the easier it should be for your infantrymen to defend. Although once somebody else took it, that attribute would be reset to its initial value. And what that means is that a player will be much more difficult to eliminate from the game, because even if another player is much stronger than that player, by the time he reaches the player's base, he will be fighting something like an uphill battle, even if his army is much greater in number and most likely also in experience. Nonetheless, he may not have the advantage because of this mechanic. So you're going to have your mines. Walls are another thing. Another thing to did I mention the map's going to be 10,000 by 10,000, and there's going to be 100 players per game, and that games are going to be able to drop in. Players are going to be able to drop into the game over time, so that you won't just be left with the players who were in the game to begin with, but you'll be able to the game will be able to go on indefinitely, because when players are eliminated, new ones may well be brought in, and you might wonder, but what if there's no room for them? Well, infantrymen are going to require supplies, and if you do not have the supplies either from your mines or from raiding other players' silos, then your armies are going to atrophy to zero with time, and thereby potentially open up space for new players to join the game. And the further away from your home base, I believe there's only 2 players now in this game, the further away your armies are from your general, the more resources they will take to maintain. Maybe there's 3 players left. So you can think, what are the effects of this change? It means that it's going to be much harder to win the game outright, because if you're going to try to take a player who's in the opposite corner to you, and by the way, players will spawn across the edge of the map, and in the center of the map your mines will perform better, although it will be more expensive, of course, to have to journey all the way out to get to the mine. So there will be an incentive to go to the middle to become rich, and there will be an incentive to go to your sides to take resources off your opponents. And also, players like peace just as much as they like war, or at least they like both. Perhaps they prefer war, or perhaps they prefer peace, but certainly they don't just want one and not the other. Although at the moment they'll find the options for peace more wanting. So we need to implement several mechanics relating to diplomacy. For example, trade. And really that's the main one that I've been able to think of. and I don't even know exactly how it ought to be implemented. But yes, I think trade would be a good thing. So you would be incentivized to maintain good relations with your neighbours, although that's not to say that you wouldn't also be perhaps even more incentivized to attack them. Yes, I think as this game comes to its end, I will stop the video.